I can speak now to the Leader of the House of Commons, Lucy Powell. Good morning.
Good morning, Trevor.
Can we just start with a story in the papers this morning? Are you intending to change the law to block large donations by Elon Musk to parties such as Reform UK?
Well, we've no immediate plans to do that, but we do have a manifesto commitment to look more broadly at our elections regime in this country, from things like votes at 16, which we're committed to, but also to make sure that our electoral system has got that integrity and is robust from many of the new issues that face undermining our democracy and our elections. But just to be clear, that foreign donations to UK-based political parties is prohibited under current law. So that's something that already exists.
Mr. Musk's biggest firm, Tesla, did make something like £90 million in its UK branch this year. So he could spare the money. But I noticed the word immediate in your answer there. It's doing a lot of work. So actually something could happen in this parliamentary term, maybe.
Well, we are committed to bringing forward some changes to the way in which elections are run in this country. There will be an elections bill, probably in the next parliamentary session, but obviously we've not made those decisions yet, because we are committed to things like votes at 16, which is in our manifesto. And our manifesto also said that we would look at other issues to make sure that our elections in this country are fair, are robust, are free from many of the issues that are undermining our democracy at the moment, like mis and disinformation, foreign state actors and so on, and making sure that the issues around donations are also fair and robust as well.
So to be clear, the bill could contain something on donations. That's very helpful to know. Let's turn to one of the stories of this week. Ministers say that there is no case for compensation for the so-called Waspi women. Some of your backbenchers disagree. Are you going to give them the opportunity to have a debate in the House of Commons and a vote on the issue?
Well, you know, backbench MPs can bring about debates in many different ways, and I'm sure we will see that in the new year. That's something that got raised with me quite a bit on Thursday in my business questions session that I do on a Thursday. So I'm sure there will be a debate on this issue. It doesn't have to be voted on in that sense. So this is a government response to the Parliamentary Ombudsman report. But look, I understand people are really disappointed about that decision, but we've had to think about that decision in the round on the very specific issue that the Ombudsman was looking at, which was miscommunication, or was there a case of miscommunication from 2004? And what we decided was that the kind of compensation that the Parliamentary Ombudsman was proposing, which would have amounted to £10 billion, was not proportionate to their findings in that particular instance. Of course, the real challenge that many of the Waspi women and where the Waspi campaign really came from was George Osborne's decision in 2011 to massively accelerate.
Before we dump on the Tories,
and the Ombudsman wasn't looking at that. But I'm just saying that the Ombudsman wasn't looking at that particular issue. That's already been looked at.
You are in government now. You are in government now. You put your name when you're in opposition to a Commons motion supporting this campaign. Many of your colleagues were out on the demos supporting them. You knew what the numbers were. Why didn't you tell the women at that point that you weren't going to be able to find the £10 billion?
Well, of course, this report was actually published in March this year, just before the general election. We didn't have a commitment in our manifesto.
Yeah, but you knew what the scale of it
at all, or in this report. Well, look, as I say, I was an MP actually I wasn't an MP, but I was working in Parliament in 2011 when George Osborne made this big decision to really accelerate bringing forward the pension age for women, which is what really gave rise to this whole campaign. And the Labour Party in Parliament at that time, we put down amendments. We opposed that at the time. That issue was looked at separately.
You weren't against
sort of
George Osborne's equalising the pension age at all.
We thought that we absolutely raised concerns at that time about bringing that forward so quickly, and obviously that was the thing that caused the campaign, if you like, and the sense of injustice. What we were having to look at
what the problem
today
here
as
is.
a government. No, hang on a minute.
Okay,
as
carry
a
on.
government today, what we were having to look at was this particular report that was looking at whether there was sufficient communication back in 2004, and we accepted that. That's why we apologised that wasn't done properly. But what we didn't and what we couldn't agree to, in the context of the public finances, but also as a proportion, something that was proportionate to that findings about miscommunication from 2004, was a £10 billion price tag. But what I would say, and I really do understand people's concerns about this, is that the value of the state pension obviously has significantly increased over that time with the triple lock, and also with the single tier pension that came in 2016. Women particularly have now benefited from that single tier state pension.
We understand that. Look, but this is an issue of fairness. Last month, your government gave retired mine workers an uplift adjustment to their pensions, which is going to cost the government £1.5 billion. You didn't have to legally, but Ed Miliband described it as a scandal, and you found the money. What's the difference between the mostly male mine workers and these women?
Well, look, that's a long-standing injustice for our mine-working community that's been going on for a very long time. And this, as I say, wasn't actually, the Ombudsman report wasn't about whether the decision to bring forward the pension age in 2011 so quickly, their report wasn't about whether that was fair or not. That's already gone through a process, and it was found to be fair and just at that time. This was quite a specific sort of report from around what happened in 2004 and whether it was communication. And we just got to, as a government, sort of take a decision whether the recompense for that was proportionate to that charge. And it was found that actually 90% of women in 2004 knew that the pension age was being brought forward at that point.
All right, let's talk about the economy. We're closing out the year. 2 months of zero growth. Bank of England reckons it's going to be a quarter of zero growth. Inflation's up, borrowing costs are up, business confidence down. Are you embarrassed at the gap between the pre-election promises you made of change and growth and what's actually happened?
I'm not. I mean, obviously, it's disappointing, these figures. Of course, we want to see these things happening faster. We want to see more growth in the economy, and we want to see that faster, but really so that it can be felt by ordinary people around the country. But this is a bit like turning around some huge oil tanker, and the underlying problems that the country faces, which are unprecedented and huge, which is why people voted for change, because they could see, quite honestly, going into that election, the country was going down the Swanee. We had living standards falling for the first time in our history going into that general election. We've had public services, particularly health and education, absolutely on their knees, in dire state of investment. And coming into government, we've had to really take some very difficult decisions. The inheritance and the public finances were even worse than we thought. We've had to take some difficult decisions.
If you don't mind...
But we are starting to turn that oil tanker around.
If you don't mind, you have told me 3 times already this morning that it's somebody else's fault. But the Bank of England Governor, Andrew Bailey, actually said it wasn't that. It was the October budget. He said that growth will probably be zero for the quarter, partly arising out of the measures you took in the budget. And I'm quoting him here. He says, with the heightened uncertainty in the economy, we can't commit to when or by how much we will cut rates in the coming year. He doesn't say this is all the Tories. He says this is your decisions.
I didn't say it was somebody else's fault. I said we were beginning to turn.
Well, you've just said to me 3 times,
around.
George Osborne and Tories.
No, that was in answer to a previous question about Waspi, which was a particular decision that George Osborne took at that time. But we're trying to turn this oil tanker around. And look, we take a fundamental view here about fixing the foundations, which is about trying to bring some economic stability, which means making sure that the budget adds up, which was something that we didn't inherit. We inherited this big black hole in the public finances, which we had to put right, so fixing the foundations of the economy. But we also have a fundamental view that in order to have a growing economy over the medium and long term, you also have to have a healthy economy and a healthy society as well, because it's no coincidence that we've got 7 million people waiting for an operation in this country, and we've got such high numbers of people out of work, inactive and on sickness benefits and so on in this country. And that's why we took the decision in the budget. It was a difficult decision, and it's had consequences for businesses. I understand that with the national insurance rise, but we took the decision to put a record level of investment into our National Health Service to bring down those waiting lists. Because if you're waiting for a hip operation or something like that, it's incredibly debilitating. You can't work, you can't go to work. And these chronic factors in our economy, lack of housing supply, a sick economy,
all right,
a sick population, a poor education, poor skills, are what is holding our country back. And that's why our budget had to take these big decisions to get money into the front line of those services. All right.
Can I talk to you about a decision which is all yours, and it's nothing particularly to do with the past? List of the new appointees to the House of Lords appeared a couple of days ago. Why someone who was sacked as Chief of Staff after 100 days, because apparently she wasn't up to the job, being given a life peerage?
Well, look, we've appointed a range of peerages. Some people think we shouldn't be appointing any at all, because we are reforming the House of Lords, but that is going to take time as well. And we've got the hereditary peers bill going through Parliament at the moment, which will abolish hereditary peers altogether, something that's long overdue. And that big programme of reform of the House of Lords will continue. But in the meantime, we've got to try and get our business through both houses. So we've got a big majority in the Commons, and we don't have a majority at all in the House of Lords. So every government that comes along needs to appoint new peers, and that's what we've done. And look, Sue Gray has got one of the things we've also changed is that now people have to put a citation in for why someone deserves to have a peerage. Sue Gray had a very, very long and esteemed career as a senior civil servant. She did I worked very closely with Sue for the year but that she was Chief of Staff in opposition and into that transition into government, and she did an outstanding job in getting our government prepared to govern, and I think she deserves the peerage.
The reason I'm asking you this question, not to be smart aleck, but the point is, you made a great deal of play when you were in opposition about the previous governments appointing people because they were part of the then Prime Minister's circle and so on and so forth. And I wonder whether there's any part of you that has any pause for thought that it might look to the untutored observer that you're doing exactly the same thing that you criticised others for.
Well, I'm not sure what criticisms particularly were put in there, but there were general
Boris
questions
Johnson,
being asked probably by the media
the two young peers he appointed,
others.
you were all over it.
Yeah. Well,
you said they weren't
worthy of
it.
Right. I don't know that I did. But look, I think the point being that what we've now brought in is a system where you do have to put a proper citation in about why someone deserves a peerage. And what tends to happen with House of Lords appointments is it's people sort of in the twilight of their career, if you like, or later in the career. Aisha is one of the exceptions. I know she's in the studio with you today. But people later on in their career bring all that expertise and that experience of whatever they've done in their past to being a scrutineer in the House of Lords. And as I say, Sue Gray has got an immense CV that I don't think many people could argue with. But on your wider point, you're absolutely right. We need to reform the House of Lords because this is not the kind of a system that people think works all that well. OK, Lucy Powell, I'm so sorry to have to stop. Because you are out of time and we've got to move on. But thank you very much for your time this morning. I understand.
A Merry
Have a good
Christmas for you,
Trevor.
to you.